Brock 30 is back, baby. The San Francisco 49ers 34-3 put a whooping on the Jacksonville Jaguars coming out of a week 9 bye in week 10 of the NFL season. The team that we saw the first 5 weeks of the NFL season in 2023. What happened? Key takeaways from this one. Of course, we're going to give out some game balls from week 10 coming at you right now.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with you, as always, at BD Peacock, at Eric_Crocker. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Appreciate all the everydayers out there. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts so you know when we have episodes like this one. We go live post-game, rapid react style. San Francisco 49ers putting a whooping on the Jacksonville Jaguars 34-3. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. 34-3, Croc. This is the team that we saw for the first 5 weeks of the season. This was not close. This was from drive 1, sacks, creating turnovers on defense, 49ers offense operating on a highly efficient level, and 49ers getting back where they were with scoring 30 points a game here, 34 in this one, although they weren't able to sneak Christian McCaffrey into the end zone for the record breaking run or reception, as it might have been at the end of that game. And I wonder how Doug Peterson took that. I didn't get a chance to see the handshake at midfield after the game, so let me know in the chat what happened there, because I can't imagine Doug Peterson liked Kyle, maybe understanding why, but still probably not liking it. And I think Kyle Shanahan probably realized later, someone was in his headset and said, hey, Chris McCaffrey could get the record right here. He's like, oh, let me pull 25, put 23 back in the game. And let's hope he doesn't get hurt. But wire-to-wire domination by the 49ers.
I'll be curious to see how Peterson kind of takes that, because coaches look at things like that different. Some say one record isn't above the team. Others, kind of make it a point to where, hey, man, if you have a chance to kind of carve your name into history, let's go for it. So I don't know what side of the fence Peterson is on, but he was a former player. I mean, backup quarterback in the NFL for a really long time. So I'm sure, even though it kind of sucks to watch a team try to score, it's actually pretty rewarding to be the team that really hold him out when the 49ers were really trying to get him that touchdown.
All right, well, we got to go to the big storyline, because the defense was a huge part of this one, and they were awesome from the start. DJB wants to know, I really want your thoughts on Wilks being on the sideline, because being able to praise players on a good play or critique and give solutions for bad plays instantly give a certain kind of energy. And they were showing Wilks a lot on the sideline, and there was a lot of congratulatory conversations in this one. There probably wasn't a lot of, hey, you really screwed that up in this game. It was really funny, because after the first drive of the game, they showed Wilks, and he was off by himself, like with the pad, trying to take some notes, because clearly there's a reason why he wants to be in the booth and have an opportunity to, collect all of his information, everything he wants to do. I don't know if it had any difference in this. To be honest with you, Croc, I think the biggest factor in all of this was pressing the reset button, and probably the best possibly timed bye week for the 49ers to get healthy, get Trent back, get Debo back, put some distance between the concussion for Brock Purdy. You bring in Chase Young, being well rested. Kyle Shanahan before the bye talked about how the team looked slow and tired, and they came out with super high energy right away in this football game, and probably vice versa for the Jaguars. This might have been a bye week cooler for the Jags, who were on a hot streak coming in. So probably the best timed bye for the Niners, worst timed bye for the Jacksonville Jaguars in week 10.
I think what is kind of getting overshadowed with all this praise of the 49ers defense or special teams and offense, and we'll talk about Wilks on the field, but Nicholas Winkler is now, was he 9-0? 9-0 in his predictions for the 49ers. So someone messaged me on Instagram, and I want to make sure that I talked about that. But aside from that, you talked about kind of the energy of the team. You know what generates a lot of energy? When you're making plays. And I think that's what the defense did. I talked a whole lot about Nick Bosa, and not that he was playing bad. I think we acknowledged about, leading the NFL in quarterback hits, leading the NFL in pressures, right? Like doing all those things at a very high level, but he wasn't getting home to get those game-changing plays. We talked about how in some of these other games, if he had just maybe gotten a sack, to just end a drive, like just put a stop to it right there, not hit the quarterback as he's throwing and he throws for a first down, like get the sack to stop the drive or change the game or force a fumble like we're seeing from TJ Watt and Myles Garrett and some of these guys. Today was a day he did it, and I noticed a big difference in the defensive, just the momentum that they end up getting, to the extent of which he started hitting the quarterback, and not just hitting the quarterback, but getting the sacks, getting the forced fumble, having the party in the backfield with Chase Young. I thought that was exciting to see when they forced a fumble there and recovered it. So we could talk a lot about Wilks being on the field, the energy and everything, but to me, it starts with the guy. And that's Nick Bosa. And he made game-changing plays. And I think that set the tone for this defense early on.
Guys being dudes. That's what we saw out there on Sunday for the 49ers. Nick Bosa causing the big – and that's where the sacks can be misleading, because you'd much rather have a defensive end get to the quarterback, cause him to make a bad throw that creates an interception and a turnover or a fumble, above just getting a sack by itself. So huge plays by Nick Bosa in this one. Early returns really good on Chase Young. I think being with Bosa will help him develop some more of a better game plan. I feel like there's not much of a game plan, and I watched a lot of Chase Young the last week or so from Washington, and then watched a lot of him in this game, was really trying to see what he looked like out there with the 49ers, and clearly he's got, physical gifts, but sometimes just he doesn't have you watch him rush, and then you watch other, like Nick Bosa's pass rush plan. It's just Nick Bosa knows. I don't know if it's not that he knows more about what he's doing, but he just looks like he has a much better plan rushing the quarterback. So I think there's still a lot there for Chase Young, but he looked amped up. I think some people in the league are probably looking around at this game thinking, man, did we let the 49ers get Chase Young for almost nothing at the trade deadline, and nobody else is willing to do more? There was a report last week that I think it was Baltimore maybe and another team were talking as well about Chase Young, and none of them were willing to do more than a fourth, apparently, because a late third got it done for the 49ers. Just fantastic. Everybody else on the line played better too. It's just a top to bottom unit. Ambry Thomas out there making plays. Croc, can we give a game ball to Ambry Thomas to start this one? I mean, and that was another change. We saw Diamador Lenore inside and Ambry Thomas on the outside. So that was another bye-week change for the 49ers defense.
It was exciting to watch Ambry Thomas out there, and I'm all for guys that are, just kind of either growing into a role or kind of developing. And developing doesn't happen in a straight line. Most of the time, there's a lot of ups and downs, and we've seen that with Ambry Thomas throughout his career, where there's his rookie year, there were ups and downs, and it finished on a high note. The next year, it was really bad, and everybody's like, get this guy out of here. Starting this year, it wasn't great as either. I think maybe his worst start to any season in his career, but to come into this game when your number was called upon, understand your role, and actually make plays, and not just make plays. We can also, we can obviously talk about the fumble recovery, which should have been a touchdown. It should have been a penalty on Trevor Lawrence. What the hell was that? Diving into the back of a player's ankles when he's 5 yards into the end zone. I thought that was ridiculous. 49ers got flagged for something else. But aside from that, I thought that Ambry Thomas did a really good job contesting the catch. I saw him in the press bell one time, and he did give up a catch underneath, but just his way that he was able to challenge the receiver at the catch point, that was something that early on, it was just pitch and catch. It was really easy. It wasn't challenging guys. On this particular play, he's diving, trying to knock the ball away. The ball was caught by Ridley, who's a terrific receiver, but I really like to see Ambry Thomas just challenge the guy at the catch point.
What'd you think about Demo inside? Whoever's inside, they're going to get targeted a lot, and that's where the Jacksonville Jaguars went pretty early in the game. They went pretty often there. Clearly, the Jaguars were trying to run a lot of screens, and that was disjointed. They finally got that going on a drive in the second half. I think midway through the second quarter, they finally got it going with a little bit of the screen game, but still not enough. Put up 3 points of offense, did the Jacksonville Jaguars. So it's hard to look at anybody on the team and say, oh, this player needs to play better. But clearly that's going to be something all season long the 49ers are dealing with and moving guys around. And I don't know. What do you think? Did they find their solution? Because they've already gone back and forth twice now with Demo outside, Oliver inside, Demo inside, Ambry Thomas outside. I mean, it looked great today, but it was driven mostly by the front seven than the corners necessarily, although Ambry Thomas did make some plays, which was really good to see. He wasn't a liability out there, because usually when number 20 is on the field, the defense targets that number. They were targeting number 2 a little bit more than 20 in this one.
Yeah, I think anytime you're in a slot, playing in that position, it's definitely a lot more challenging. defensive back, former defensive back, current defensive back, they'll tell you playing in that nickel spot is it's a different type of world there. Just a whole lot of space. We saw them target them early on the slot fade. I think it was actually Travarius Ward that broke up a ball in the end zone on Christian Kirk. I really like that matchup there. But ultimately, I think Diamador Lenoir would tell you that's a game that he would like to have back. They got him on I call it a San Antonio Spurs pick play. Where it was like the receiver just literally set a screen, but you can do that within 1 yard of the line of scrimmage. So that's kind of on the defensive back to maybe either have a little bit more depth to where you get that, you're able to get that call more downfield. Obviously, for the 49ers, it kind of worked into the hands of Jacksonville, being able to get that fade where I'm pretty sure a lot of people just saw like 20 yards of separation. Like, man, how did that happen? Outside of that, I think he tackled well. And he played well in the box. We know he's a scrappy guy, but I think, just covering a little bit more on guys like Christian Kirk downfield. We saw the ball where he had to kind of come back to it, dive on the ground. Those are always going to be tough. But ultimately, I think that's a game that he would like to have back, talking about Lenoir.
Yeah, and obviously, if this is the game plan they want, if this is the lineup they want, he'll have more opportunity to play there more, get more comfortable, because it's hard getting moved around a lot on the defensive side of the ball. We saw Jimmy Ward in the past didn't like doing that. So we'll see if this is what they stick with. And early returns good overall when you're only allowing Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars to score 3 points on you. So 34-3, more on some big plays, some game balls, including one George, Jefferson, Kittle, and a whole lot more next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by Gametime. You shouldn't have to worry when you're trying to buy tickets for your next big event, whether it's a 49ers game or music, concert, comedies, theater events, any events near you. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all of those big events. And with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Gametime takes all the guesswork out of buying tickets. So go to Gametime. We got a special offer for our listeners to take the guesswork out of that buying tickets. You can see see the view from your seats before you buy, so you know exactly what you're getting. I love the all-in prices, because what's worse when you're buying tickets than those hidden fees that really hit you right at the end? And buy those tickets in seconds, just a couple of taps, and it's right there on the app. You don't have to go fishing through your email to find those tickets when you do arrive at your event. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, I got to talk about the big play of the game, the haymaker of the game, which was Brock Purdy's touchdown pass to George Kittle. And I held my breath for a second for multiple reasons. One, because it was a big play. It was the biggest offensive play of the game for the 49ers. 66-yard touchdown. George Kittle one-on-one with Devin Lloyd, the linebacker. Made a nice move, got open. Brock Purdy's under pressure. The best play from Purdy in this game, too. It wasn't just, wide open guy. You throw it and he catches it, and it's a big play touchdown. Brock Purdy under pressure was able to get the ball exactly where it needed to go. George Kittle got open. Lloyd's a first-round linebacker. He was a first-rounder for a reason. He's got speed, and he kind of caught up to Kittle on the route. And then Kittle with the nice little late separation, we'll call it. Some people might call it a push-off, just to get that last little bit. Lloyd goes down. George Kittle catches it, takes it the rest of the way. You rarely see a touchdown in the NFL where you have that much space between the guy who scores the touchdown and everybody else on the football field, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And with the ticky-tack sort of offensive and defensive pass interferences that were called early in this game, that was one of the reasons I held my breath, Croc, because I thought, oh man, are they going to flag Kittle on this one? Because it was, they're by themselves. You see the arm out a little bit. It's like, man, they're going to bring this one back, aren't they? No, they did not. So thankfully they did not, because I hated a couple other calls. One with I think it was Charvarius, and one with an offensive PI on Brandon Ayuk. So good on Kittle. Huge play in the game for the 49ers, and that was really the big knockout blow that was clear the Jacksonville Jaguars were not going to get up from.
That was a terrific job by Brock Purdy on the touchdown pass to George Kittle. I mean, they just pocket collapsing in his face, could not step into the throw, still figured out a way to get the ball out there enough to get the ball to George Kittle. George Kittle had to come inside a little bit on there, and boom, made a play. And that's when I saw that happen. It just took me back to what we said. Like, when you target, the more you target George Kittle, just good things happen. Like, it more times than not bad to target him. And, we complain, or at least definitely I complain about the usage of George Kittle. And that's why, like, when you see plays like that, he could be doing that every game. Not saying he's going to have a 66-yard touchdown every game, but just giving you those type of plays, those explosive plays downfield. He's a mismatch nightmare. You had a tight end, Lloyd. And Lloyd out of Utah, good linebacker, good young linebacker. But George Kittle, to me, is an elite receiver that's not being utilized that way. So to see them just target him down the field, I was ecstatic about that. The fact that he made the play, that was definitely a plus. The fact that it was a touchdown, that was a cherry on top. And to see him kind of jog into the end zone the last 5 yards, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, he's looking around. I was like, man, what do I do right now? I'm so by myself as I'm trotting into the end zone. No, fantastic play by the 49ers. Really all around. Let's go through the stats here really quick, and I'm going to just go ahead and say it and give George Kittle a game ball. And 4 targets in this game, though, Croc, and he has that big of a play. I still want to see more. Double that, man. Double those targets. Target George Kittle. I call him George Jefferson Kittle. I don't know what his middle name is. I don't think it's George Jefferson Kittle. But 3 catches for 116 for George Kittle in the long touchdown. Obviously, Brandon Ayuk had the early touchdown as well, 3 for 55. They really didn't need to throw the ball much, which is why there wasn't a lot of targets going on, except for McCaffrey, who's, obviously been the focal point of the offense for the 49ers since he arrived. 10 targets for McCaffrey, caught 6 of them for 47. Debo 4 for 30 in this one. Juszczyk had the score late. Ronnie Bell even got in there in garbage time for a 20-yard reception. Christian McCaffrey on the ground, 16 for 95. And Debo with the TD as well, 3 for 29 on the ground for Debo Samuel. And then Brock Purdy's line on the day, super efficient, nearly 300 yards, 19 of 26 passing, 296 passing yards with 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and only sacked twice. So just all around dominating performance, and you can start throwing game balls really in any direction after this one, Croc.
Side note, George Kittle's middle name, Krager. So very, very unique middle name for a very unique football player.
Yes.
As far as you talk about game balls and how we can kind of like spread those around, and I think you threw out a lot of names of guys that really just had an impact in this game, but I don't know if any impact was bigger than Trent Williams coming back from his injury, seeing him get out on the edge, seeing him get out in front of guys on screens, end around, lead blocking guys getting out the way of him. It was really exciting to see him run around and look healthy in this game. So if I'm going to give out a game ball, I think that's got to be the first one. Toughing through an injury, I still think it was closer to a high ankle sprain than.
Uh-oh. I lost Croc, or Croc lost me. I'm not sure. What's going on here? Croc froze on me. All right. Maybe Croc's frozen. Maybe I'm frozen. You guys aren't hearing any of this right now. But if that's the case, then maybe I'll be back, or maybe Croc will be back here. Ken in the chat says, what hat are you wearing, BD? I am wearing the Cordoba Cafeteros hat, which is Mexican League, like independent league baseball hat. So it's, the C with the coffee in the middle. I love me some coffee, love me some baseball and some minor league, independent league, pro baseball. Love it. Croc froze. Okay, good. So it was Croc frozen and not me. Right in the middle of making some good points. Croc is amped in this one. But I totally agree. Trent Williams, game ball for sure. He's such a difference-making player for the 49ers, and you see it on the field. And usually I think of offensive line as one unit, and I still do, but it's what he represents and what you can do elsewhere when he's in the game and when he's winning those battles. He's a guy like Josh Allen, who's been, a force for the Jaguars defense this year. You see him getting out on the run and making blocks. Here we go. Croc is back here. Yeah.
I don't know what the heck just happened. Like my computer just I got a MacBook. It's supposed to be nice, but it just rebooted out of nowhere. I'm like, is it doing some kind of update? It started all the way over, but I'm back.
So I agree. Croc, Trent Williams, game ball in this one. Fantastic job by him. And there's a lot of heart and soul players in the 49ers. When you have Kittle and you have Debo and you have Trent Williams, even if the numbers aren't big for those guys, Christian McCaffrey, the other players feed off them. It's hard to beat a team that has that many dudes like that.
It definitely is. I still feel like, again, because everything's not always going to be perfect, right? Like the defense isn't always going to be as great as they were today. So offensively, figure out a way to get a guy like George Kittle more involved. And I know I just talked about him a few minutes ago, the plays, and I keep harping on it, but I just think he's such a special talent with such a special middle name. You got to get this guy involved a little bit more early and often in these games. Just
Absolutely.
He creates too many big plays, too many mismatches. And again, super ideal situation today. Most games, and we saw the previous 3 games, were not like that.
We got more game balls to give out here, and I'm super pumped to give out a couple of more of these game balls to maybe some offensive linemen, maybe some coaches on the 49ers. You got to point to the coaches as well in a dominating 34-3 victory like this one. All that coming up next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And of course, we got some special offers for our listeners from FanDuel. And by the way, those odds for the 49ers now probably be creeping back up for winning the Super Bowl. I think it was 6-1 odds, and they were still number 3 in the league, even after losing 3 straight games as far as Super Bowl potential winning teams. Brock Purdy, maybe Christian McCaffrey, talking about MVPs again. McCaffrey didn't get that record, though. Right now, new customers at FanDuel can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins on that first $5 bet. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time than right now to get in on the action. So many different ways to bet: spreads, player props, over-unders. Talked about the Super Bowl stuff, futures, NFL draft props, and of course, individual players on the 49ers to bet on. And of course, that San Francisco 49ers football team every single week throughout the year you can bet on. NBA, NHL as well. Tons of sports, every sport out there. You can find that action as well at FanDuel. So just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL, this portion of the NFL season, the second half of the NFL season in style. Again, FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL and the Locked On Podcast Network. Okay. By the way, if you are watching on YouTube, you see some extra production going on here. We've got some very special things happening and a channel launching as well. It is 24 hours, all locked on podcasts. And you will be finding that soon on other apps as well. But right now you can find that on Locked On Today on YouTube and to some television sets, I think, around the world as well to come. And we'll obviously keep you informed on that one. How about this one, Croc? And I don't want the sideline Wilks to get all the credit because of where he was, but how about Steve Wilks? He's been under the heat from his head coach, from fans, kind of pointing in his direction. That defense responded this week and was playing hard for him. I didn't see any bad calls in this one, Croc. And like Tayshaun Gibson said before the game, he was quoted from, I think it was Mike Silver, and a lot of people took the quote wrong, thinking that Tayshaun Gibson was throwing Steve Wilks under the bus, saying he's making bad plays, so we have to make plays. And he was saying, no, players have to make plays. It's not on the play caller every time to make the perfect play call. It's never going to be perfect like that. So the playmakers have to make plays. The players have to make the plays, even if it is maybe a weird call that doesn't work out and is not perfect. And Kyle Shanahan's talked about that on the offensive side as well, having a quarterback that can make plays. So I just want to throw out a game ball to Steve Wilks because he's taken a lot of grief that's maybe undeserved, kind of scapegoated in some ways. And the defense absolutely responded coming out of the bye.
And I do want to make it very clear, the reason why at least I feel like he had been scapegoated, not because the defense played great or something over the previous couple games. Like, they did not. Like, they were very poor over those games. But I think that he coached well the first 5 weeks of the season. And not to say that every game was perfect or every call was perfect, but he coached very well to where, this criticism that came about, especially last 2 weeks, to me was a little unwarranted to the extent, of wanting him fired or even making him move down to the field to try to see if something like that would make a difference. I don't know if that was a difference in this game. I think the 49ers the players made plays. And along the lines of what Tayshaun Gibson said, hey, man, he calls the plays. We need to, make sure that we're doing the things that we need to do. We need to execute a certain way. And I think they did at every level of this game. Now, early on, it started to look a little weird. There was some screen plays. I thought I saw Fred Warner kind of overrunning some plays, missing a tackle here and there. Obviously, he rebounded, as did the rest of the defense, and they adjusted extremely well. Maybe the adjustment is because he was on the sideline. I don't think so, but I think overall it was good to see him interact with the guys more on the sideline. And maybe that's just something that they're used to, and they wanted a little bit more of that face-to-face interaction with their defensive coordinator like they got from Robert Saleh and D'Amico Ryans.
And I do want to see in the chat who you guys think should get some game balls that we haven't mentioned yet. Did we give Brock Purdy a game ball? What do you think about Brock Purdy's performance here? Statistically, it was awesome. We talked about his best throw of the game under pressure, the bomb to George Kittle, and the touchdown to, this is classic Brock Purdy, I think, was the touchdown to Ayuk earlier on in the game, because he'll do some things that in some cases could get you into trouble, and he's not afraid to sling it. He's not afraid to let the ball fly. That's why he got a certain nickname, right, about a certain part of his body. And he's confident, man, and I love it. And you throw the ball across the field, you might get picked off sometimes. You might throw touchdown passes sometimes. So I don't have a problem with it, especially if you get it to a place where the defense can't and your guy can get it in the back of the end zone. But what do you think overall about Brock Purdy's performance? Was it game ball worthy, Croc? 3 touchdowns, 34 points on offense for the 49ers, most of it through the air.
How many interceptions?
I don't believe, let me count. 0.
0 game ball. And I think that's going to be the big thing for him. Those late game turnovers, making sure that doesn't happen. Now, again, the circumstances were different. The times we've seen him have those late game interceptions were in games where could he been pressing because the defense wasn't playing well and things like that. But ultimately, I think we understand how he's going to play, especially when the defense is cooking. You got all your weapons. You got everybody. You got Trent Williams back. More times than not, I'd say 98% of the time in that scenario, he plays a lot like what we saw tonight. And in the other games, I think he plays a lot like what we saw tonight, minus the few turnover-worthy plays, which we did not see. So no pressing from him in this moment. I think people are still going to question what is it going to be like when the games are a little bit tighter. But right now, no questions about what it looks like when the 49ers are definitely ahead and everybody else is cooking. That was good stuff. Definitely give them a game ball.
Absolutely. Seeing a lot of love for the offensive line here in the chat. Vietas says, T. Williams, we already gave a game ball to Trent Williams. If you're just tuning in, he said the line just looked different with him back, even if he's not 100%. I've seen a lot of people nominate Feliciano getting in there with the start for Aaron Banks at left guard. And during the week, Kyle Shanahan said that Feliciano was probably going to start working in and maybe getting some starts and getting some playing time anyway. So when Aaron Banks is back, we might see Feliciano at center or maybe at right guard, where the 49ers have been a little bit weaker on the right side there. So Spencer Burford, you better play your best ball because Feliciano might be working his way in there. And so that's interesting. Some more shakeups that could potentially be happening, and Kyle Shanahan hinting at that. So Feliciano obviously doing a good job here as a reserve for the 49ers, and in limited playing time this season has looked solid. And so we'll see if he's the starting right guard at some point after he starts at left guard while Aaron Banks is out.
I think it's been very clear for a while now that Spencer Burford not playing the best ball at the right guard position. Now, he did have a heads-up play. It was a short yardage situation. He went in and pushed Christian McCaffrey from behind, ended up ultimately pushing him to where he got the first down. So that was a good job seeing the young guy do that. But outside of that, it's definitely been kind of up and down. It's been up and down to the naked eye, just kind of watching the live broadcast. I'd be interested to be a fly on the wall and hear what Kyle Shanahan has to say, kind of just more about the way he's been performing. A guy who was a rotation guard last season. So a lot more responsibility put on him. And I'm not sure he's handling it exceptionally well.
I was a little bit worried for Eric Armstead when he went down with an injury in this game. He looks to be okay. And I thought it was really funny early on. It was the first sack. It was that first drive for the Jaguars. And it was kind of a team sack, and there was some pressure and really good coverage down the field. So that's why I call it a team sack. And Trevor Lawrence kind of hit the deck, and there was a race. And I just thought it was funny because Eric Armstead clearly won the race to get credit for the sack and dive. Arm extended to touch him first, so he got the sack. So we always talk about sacks are overrated. The players still know that sacks are important, and they get paid a lot because of sack numbers, and Eric Armstead won the race to that one. I just thought it was a funny little side note where it's like the game inside the game. You're like, oh yeah, and he's probably, I bet he was talking smack. He's like, yeah, I got that sack because I beat you to him and I touched him while he was down first. I mean, he got pressure too, so credit to him. But I thought that was a funny moment.
Just if you think sacks don't matter to these players, which I don't think anybody really does, but watch when a player is getting sacked, when the quarterback is getting sacked, and how many other guys try to jump onto the pile. Like they all want a piece of that sack. A half sack to them is just as good as a full sack. So they'll take any chance to try to get a little extra stat padding going.
Absolutely. All right. So we got to get rolling. If you got any more game balls in the chat, let us know that you want to nominate. Croc, any more game balls or any final thoughts before we go? We're going to have a rewatch. We're going to talk more about this game. We're going to get Wink's thoughts on Wednesday because Winky Wednesday is becoming a popular thing now amongst 49ers fans with him 9 for 9 on the season with his predictions right now. Pretty unbelievable. So we got to get his thoughts on the Wish Watch too with the Wishnowski punt down to the 1 yard line. The 49ers winning in every phase, even Jake Moody with like a lot of time to think about it with the field goal sneaking in the upright made people a little bit worried there, but he made all of his kicks as well. So really fantastic all around.
Now I'd say, Tyler Hufunga. Did we hand out a game ball to him yet?
No, we had not.
He was all over the field. I see him at the line of scrimmage. I see him in the box. I saw him making tackles there. I saw him, in coverage, trying to make plays. Obviously, Johnny on the spot with the interception, which, I always talk about guys like him. They find a way to be around the ball to take advantage of a big play opportunity. And it was a tipped ball in the air. Who's there? Hufunga. Of course it's Hufunga. All right. So it was pretty cool to see him kind of start to get his groove back. I know there were some people kind of questioning the safeties, how they were playing. I saw Gibson have a nice pass breakup as well downfield. But Tyler Hufunga with yet another takeaway. It was really good to see him kind of get his groove back.
Absolutely. Vintage Hufanga in this game, I think, is what we saw. So everybody playing at a high level, everybody flying around, a well-rested 49ers team, and they did not look slow and tired at all in week 10 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So back in the win column, great thing for the 49ers and a great thing for us here on Locked On 49ers. So hope the fans are having fun with this one, celebrating. Of course, Croc and I will be back later in the week talking a lot more about this game every single day as we do on the Locked On Podcast Network. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Croc and I back tomorrow. Locked On 49ers.